Now, to the Stroop test that we started talking about a little bit, you know, some people see that stuff. Actually, you mentioned the story to us about how the first time, you know, you showed that on to a lot of people on UFC, right? Some people see it and they think it's a gimmick. Why is that beneficial for athletes?
So the simplest answer, I'll go from the cognitive side and I'll go from the more mindset, psychological side. So from the cognitive side, it actually works. I know you brought on numerous brain scientists, so your audience probably have heard this, but it works regions of the brain that work on inhibition control, goal planning, and error detection, right? So this is something like a loop almost. So when you see the Stroop color, so if the color mismatches the word, red written in green, green written in blue, etc. So the first thing is the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, where we make decisions, plan out, rationalize what makes us human, right? So the first step is planning. The plan is color, not word. Simplistic, right? This is why it gets gimmicky because, okay, you're looking at a color, whatever. But from the neuroscience side of it, you're actually having to plan out what to do. That's part one. So the second part is error detection. So there's something called the ACC, which is the anterior cinglet cortex, which is error detection, emotional regulation, reward response. So you see where I'm going with this. So now if I detect, okay, it's not red, it says it, but it's written in blue. So now I detected that I'm fixing the error, which is it's not this color. I fixed it. Or if you don't, you say the wrong thing and then you recognize, wait, I said red when it was supposed to be blue. Either way you look at it, your brain has to recalibrate to some degree.
Yes. So
that's the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex. Now the VTA, the ventral tegmental area, this is where we talk about dopamine response. So the VTA for short. So after you did the correct or incorrect response, now that dopamine reward system has to say, good job, behavior that I needed was fulfilled. Back to square one, the color you saw, go back to it again and repeat. Now, if it was wrong, guess what? It's the thing with dopamine. People think it's only for the bad responses. No, it works for the good response, I should say. But it works for the bad responses too, or the negative responses too. Look at like drug addiction. It's giving a reward or a motivation to do the behavior again because your body is saying, I need this. So same thing with the training. If you do it wrong, you're reinforcing the wrong behavior. So that's the beauty of those drills. At face value, look like a fun brain game, sure. But you're teaching from a physical standpoint how your brain needs to, one, interpret information, two, correct yourself to whatever degree, and three, reinforce it. And you saw I did the one outside. It was like 45 seconds to a minute. So a minute of that, you're conditioning your brain. Literally, that's why we coined it cognitive conditioning, because like strength conditioning is the same way. You get under a stimuli, whether it's a 300-pound squat or a 400-pound bench, whatever it is, it forces an adaptation. And the same thing with our brain. So that's the cognitive side.
Yeah.
Now, going to the mental or psychological side, if I do mess up in real time, the first thing, I don't care if they're pro athletes to a little girl. I have an 8-year-old daughter who does some of these drills, and it's almost identical. The first thing they do when they mess up, oh man. And that right there tells me, you get easily flustered when things don't go your way. So not everyone does this, but that's the beauty of different personalities.
Yeah, like the next thing's coming. You got to keep going.
Perfect, exactly. So that's where that part comes in from the mental, psychological side, because now not only am I reinforcing it cognitively, I can change or sustain my mood. Because some people do sustain. I have people who literally mess up, do it again, mess up, do it, and they keep getting frustrated to the point where they stop. Yeah. I've had people who get paid a lot of money on a certain day to do certain things, walk away from these tasks.
Just think about like the essence of like an athlete breaking down during a game because maybe he made a bad pass, or a fucking grappler he gets swept, he just gives up on the match. Right?
You don't feel good about yourself anymore. Not as confident.
Yeah.
It's sunk down. You know, if it sinks down, like I think the other guy can feel that, right?
This is amazing. Yeah. It trains.
I think sports are exactly what you're pointing out. I mean, this game with the colors, and I know you have like lots of variations of that. That's what sports is. I think that people don't recognize that, but everything is like pattern recognition. You know, so someone in basketball does a head fake. And like, why do they do a head fake? It's like, well, they're faking a shot and they're trying to get the guy to jump. And if the guy jumps and they wait till he jumps out of the way and then they shoot and they make it. Maybe they know that the guy's going to go for maybe they did a head fake earlier in the game and now they just lay it right up and the guy didn't move at all. The guy's just like frozen. In football, there's so many different things. Just because I played the sport for a long time, had opportunity to coach it and stuff like that too. But on something like a screen pass, if you're a lineman and you're going to block somebody, play after play after play. You keep running the ball and running the ball and running the ball and running the ball. Every once in a while you throw it. But on something like a screen, you actually literally just get out of the guy's way. And the defensive player has no idea what to do in high school. Obviously, college, pro. they get onto you. But like you keep hitting into the guy over and over again, every play, 20 plays in a row. And then all of a sudden you stand up high and they just mimic what you're doing. I don't know why, but they stand up high too. You move out of the way and they're like, oh, quarterback. And they get to finally get towards the quarterback, which is every young defensive player's goal, is to try to kill the quarterback, kill the guy with the ball. And the quarterback's like, bink, just throws it right over your head to the running back, who's now off and running because there's 4 or 5 defensive players that are all concentrated on the quarterback. So sports are like this time and time again. You see it in baseball with pitching. Maybe a guy's known to like back a guy off the plate. He backs a guy off the plate once by throwing a fastball kind of inside. And then maybe the next one, he's like, maybe he normally has a pattern of throwing a couple balls first before he throws a strike. He knows that the guy is anticipating that, and rather than backing the guy off the plate at all, he just lets one rip right down the middle, and the guy's like completely frozen, just swinging at it. Yeah, caught looking. There you go.
Well, have you heard of a term called cognitive flexibility?
It makes sense.
So it's pretty straightforward. Or mental flexibility. So going to your point, the reason I bring it up is the reason they get frozen because we have to be able to shift our thinking in real time. And like you said, the pattern recognition, 2 curveballs, and he usually throws a changeup, or a changeup and a fastball. He's probably throwing a curve next, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Why does a changeup work? It's like a 60-mile-an-hour ball. Like it should never work, but it's just because it's like a slow dud compared to how much heat the guy was throwing the other ones.
So that's where mental or cognitive flexibility comes in. Is to be able to offset what typically will happen. Like think like logic. If this happens, then that. So like if I said, if it's raining, it's probably wet, right? But if it's wet, it doesn't necessarily mean it's raining. So in the same context, you have to be understand that all because he threw 2 curves or a change up, whatever, it's like expecting both sides of the outcome. Now it seems pretty straightforward, but we really don't do it. We usually have a straight linear path to see this because our brain likes to make shortcuts of everything, right? And it's a evolutionary adaptation. I always say a term called "there's no more saber-toothed tigers" because we got newer software to an extent, but the hardware, if you took a person and stripped them naked from 2023, no get ideas, guys, but 2023, put them in 1702.
Not us.
Part, I see where you went there. Okay, let's imagine and not.
Let's go to 1980.
Well, maybe just not the United States.
Yeah, I said not America.
Yeah, not America.
Got a point. Okay, not us, but I see. But you give him okay.
I got you, bro. I got you, bro.
If it's me and you,
like
we're
5
somewhere on
seconds
the West
too.
Coast, the Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
So you're not seeing a difference until we talk, right? There's even studies and research who talk about this, how from the last 1,000 or 2,000 years that we kind of getting dumber because we're still the same people. So getting back to the point of all of this is like we're not changed that much. So these things that we do, our brain wants to get to a point where you automatically get a response. Because what's easier, right? Okay, if I think about the trajectory of the angle of his pitch and the way he released it, and also he usually does 2 curves and 2 changeups, and then he does this, how much time are you going to have to actually swing? Not a lot. So the brain says, let me just go to the simplest example. Matter of fact, I'll give you a perfect example. Ready for this? I do this in my class when I used to teach at the local college back home. I'm going to give you 4 options. The question is, what is the most dangerous job based on this? Likeliness of dying while working. So I'm going to give you 4 selections, and you can pick which one. So most dangerous job based on likeliness to die while working. A, police officer. B, farmer. C, policeman. D, fisherman. Most dangerous job.
Just gonna go with the fisherman because he's like, kind of a little different, but also like watching Deadliest Catch. People get fucked up on there.
What is the difference between police officer and policeman?
Oh, maybe you said the same thing twice.
Police officer.
Oh, I meant fireman. Sorry,
fireman. Okay,
that's my fault. Fireman.
I thought that was part of the game.
Yeah, me too. I was like, see, that was unintentional. That was unintentional. But yeah, I'm trying to mess you up. Not playing. But fireman. Sorry, not policeman and fireman and police officer.
God, I'd say. Damn, I don't know about fireman. You know what? I'm gonna just go. Damn, fireman.
Okay, you ready for the answer? Drum roll. Fisherman.
Hey.
But wait, you ready for this catcher though? Number 2 would have been what? What do you think?
Farmer.
Okay. But why did your brain do that? Think about this.
I thought of fires, bro.
Exactly. And that's called availability bias. Your brain goes to most relevant. Because what do you see on the news more? Because he made a good point, deadliest catch. That's why he thought that. Most people think fishermen, they think on the pier with your granddad, you're just chilling. You're probably not gonna die there. Yeah. But in the rough seas where the waves are 40, 50 feet high and the boat could get flipped over, capsized, that's dangerous. So it's the most likely because drowning or getting injured. And then with farmer-wise, number 2, people think old McDonald baling hay, but think about all the machines they use that are high power, could grind you up in a second.
Crushed up
dangerous.
By a tractor.
Exactly. Now, firemen and police aren't too far off, but they're not the top because we think fire, you will probably get seriously injured or burned badly or even die. And in police, we think guns. And guns kill. But the likeliness of a police drawing, my dad was a police for 32 years and he fortunately, knock on wood, didn't have to do anything like to that extent. Yeah. But some people do. But it's not as relevant because on what do we see on the news every day? Shooting of officer shooting. Yeah. But guess what? That's the minority, but it's a big event to us because you're not checking the random newspaper in small nowhere town. No shootings today. No shooting. No, you see the CNN or Fox News and it spreads. Yeah. So our brain tries to make sense. So you thought firemen because it makes sense. That's not an illogical choice. So bringing this full circle, I know I took it to job occupations, but when that athlete, or even just in life, when we make bad decisions, is because our brain's just trying to make the quickest sense of it, and this messes us up sometimes.
I'm kind of curious about this. When it comes to like the Stroop test, and I know that like you have the added stressor of having an athlete doing a drill and moving so that there's more moving parts, but is there any benefit to like having an app that you can then do these? I know you're not stressed because maybe you're sitting doing it or standing, but is there a benefit to that?
So I actually do use an app version. So the one you saw is the one I created for those drills, but I have an app version that I utilize and it measures their reaction time, their variance, their consistency, their speed. So I know not just how fast, because most of these apps, there's a lot of them out there, but the ones I use are more specific to those, because when you think about like statistics, we want to know exactly what variable made them better or what variable made them worse. I even use HRV, heart rate variability. So I'm looking at a lot of things, and this is stuff like, obviously, IG only shows you clips, but this stuff I look back on my end. So when I'm talking to a client, because I work with all populations, athletes, I have a client with dementia, but I use the same methodology. So if I know how fast they are, that's cool. But if I have 2 different people and I see who's better, the next thing I'm looking at is how accurate. Okay, they're both accurate, 100% accuracy, cool. Now, variance, that's my favorite because variance shows me how consistent. So you think of like, if I do a task together, and that's actually right there. So yeah, so to do tasks together where I see how consistent they are. If they're more consistent, say 12% of the time they deviate from their normal score, that's good. I want to see under 20% for that. But if they're like 40, 50%, you don't even have to know stats to get this, is what would you want to only be good at half the time? 10% or 90% sounds better than 50%, right? Yeah. So that's what variance tells me, because I know if they do this said task, when I change the variable, let's say I make it quicker or I add more external things, do they get faster? Do they get less consistent? And then I can say, okay, they didn't get less consistent. Let me add, that's just like adding bands or chains, right? I used to be a strength coach way back in the day before, well, I was doing it simultaneously as learning my mental coaching and psychology degrees. But basically, I look at it the same way. Adding bands and chains or boards or whatever it is changes the angles, changes the resistance at a certain load or a certain height. It's the same thing with the mental stuff. You have to change the variables.
Hey guys, if you like this clip, go ahead and comment down below and let us know what you liked about it, all right? Share this with a friend. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, we are on Reddit and Discord. All that's down below. All our sponsors and everyone that supports us down below there too, so you can get whatever you like from us, all right? Peace.